Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live. We're going to do a smaller, faster version of this full page composition that was done recently that I really liked, but doing full page scenes, it's not like, in a lot of people's, I don't know, whatever, their comfort zone. And even for myself, I don't work this large too often, but I really like it when I get into it. So if you have more time, maybe you can do something like that but for practical, I don't know, reasons, and maybe just staying within the comfort zone for a lot of people, working on a quarter page, might be the better way to go. I'm going to do a similar composition using a lot of the same stamps, and I'll try to go for the same color scheme, just on quarter page. Okay, so this is a piece of semi-gloss cardstock, and I use semi-gloss cardstock when I want to use things like colored pencils in the process, because it'll stick to this type of paper, yet the semi-gloss still has a little bit of, coating on it where it retains a lot of the media that's been applied to it on the surface, resulting in some brighter tones than sometimes the matte surfaces that are more absorbent. Okay, so for this purpose here, instead of going landscape, I think I'm going to go for portrait, okay, because I think I can get more of these elements into this format like this, in such a small space in comparison to the, whatever, the reference composition. All right, so the one thing that I am going to change, I'm going to change the, this one was using the the Seaside Cove large, all right, and I'm going to switch off to the Seaside Cove small, just, for whatever spatial reasons on this one. All right, so this is this size right here, and you can see how much smaller it is than this one right here. That's one of the largest stamps, whatever, ever made in the, whatever, the scenic stamping industry. Okay, so let's get right into this. Hello, Linda and Nancy. How are you both? Long time no see. I'm joking with Linda here. She's here like every day. All right, so let's just build this one up. I'm going to start off with this foreground right here. I'm going to go pretty low with this one right here, just considering all of the space in this right here that we're going to have to not replicate, but whatever, imitate, I guess, in this scene. This is the boulders with lichen. In the larger scene, I'm using almost the full height of it, but on this one right here, we'll go for about half of it like this. All right, you can go even smaller if you want to. And in this one right here, we went 1, 2, 3 across. But of course, in this one, we only need one impression to cover that full length from edge to edge, left to right. All right, let's see. Now, I have the cabin in the upper, whatever, right quadrant right there. We'll use the same cabin, but maybe it'll be going off the page a little bit more. I could probably squeeze it a little bit more lower like this. I do want to retain a lot of that imagery. Okay, but I do want to get a little bit of that mountain in the background because I really like the look of that. So let's go about like right here. Okay, doing well, thanks, Nancy. Always having fun when we can stamp. Right now, I'm kind of going through this thing. I want to stamp out some fall types of scenarios. And I could combine that with the Halloween stuff. Fall and Halloween. You can have some skeletons walking through a grove of, trees in full color. But oscillating back and forth between the notions of, know, some Halloween stuff and fall. I do stamp fall year round too, you know, just if I feel like it, but I don't know, it seems like it's a good idea to do it, hit things seasonally as well. I'm going to put a little bit of color into my trees. On this one right here, I just stamped everything in black just to keep things easy and simple because there's a lot of images on that larger full-size composition. But since we're only just going with a quarter page, I'm going to bring in a little bit of inherent color into the impressions themselves. This is a really dark green here, so I don't know if it's going to read as green. In the impression, it might just look black because I'm kind of going over the black as well and combining a little bit of it. But let's just see how it goes. Or, let me see, here's a little bit of like an olive green. It's a little bit of a lighter green. So let's see if that's some, I mean, I'm going to be cutting off some of this top portion as well. So let's see if I can get any of this color in there. Okay, let's see. So I have the Seaside Cove that I need in here. And I think that's the only thing that I'm kind of working around. A little bit of that Rocky Peak will be in here as well. So let's go like this. Okay, I'll get some of the trees in here. I can see it. Let's go with that. We're stuck with it now. Okay. Yeah, there. We got some of that kind of watercolory looking kind of green black blend right there. Now this one right here, this image, I'm going to use a little bit of the right side of it for the right side of the scene right here, and that'll create a little bit of an opening for that background mountain. All right, and I'll go a little bit lower with it just to change the height, and it'll give it a little bit more variation. All right, so it's almost like that little portion right there that wasn't stamped. I'll be using that portion over here. The only thing I don't want is I don't want like a piece of the cabin showing up right over here. I mean, you know, you could have a bit of it and say, okay, then well, that's the neighbor across the way, but just in general, I don't want too much of it. So I'm kind of just putting my finger right there, seeing where that cabin ends. So just as long as I'm kind of a little bit to the, what is it, the left of that, it should be good. About like so. I'm just kind of looking through my very stained tech and I could see the silhouette of the image through it. These are on the cling foam, and I don't use separate blocks for the you know, my cling foam version. I just use the other side of my block. This is for bare rubber, and this is for cling right here. Usually I have this cover on the top of it, but I didn't bother to find that before I started this scene right here. All right, so we have this right here. So we have this little kind of condensed peekaboo version of this. This right here, this gap right here has been closed in like this right here. So it's a little bit more, when you're doing things like this, I guess the larger, you know, the scenic stamping scenario is, the grander something can look. But when you do something like this, and if it's of a similar type of color scheme and whatever, essence, I guess, in terms of lighting and coloring, this I would describe as a little bit more kind of intimate. You know what I mean? There's a, you know, everything's condensed into a much smaller area, which has its own kind of emotional quality to it. Oh, you can see right here where this stamped out right here. Like that's the full version of it like that. And this like goes like this, right up there. All right, so we have this little opening in here to address, and you know what I was thinking about doing on this one? I don't know if I've used this like this yet. Let's go back to this image just to show you how much what kind of variation you can get from your stamps right here. And this is the way I design my stamps too. I design them to try to, you know, so we can get as much mileage out of them as possible. So you can combine them, of course, with their other sibling designs in the line, stamps from other companies. But you can also just kind of, I don't know if the word is dissect, but you can use smaller portions of your designs just to get a certain usage out of those elements within the designs themselves. Okay, so anyways, so on this one right here, I used, I think I stamped Pine Island and the tree cluster behind it, okay? Two separate designs. Let me see if I can just use this one design for both the right, left, and center images in this particular composition. Let's go up a little bit higher, because this is going to represent kind of the far side of the whatever, inlet or whatever you want to call it. So let's see. All right, I need to do a little bit of masking. So this is going to be my lake's edge, and then I need to cover up these deciduous trees right there, just so that these background ones won't stamp through it. And I'll stamp it from probably like here and up, just this portion right here. I don't really need to mask off too much over here because I'm not going to be stamping over it, and these trees are solid as opposed to this deciduous, which is open. And we'll go a little bit low. I don't want to go too high with it because I want it to look like smaller trees in the distance there. Hello, Patty. How are you? Happy Friday to you. Hope you had a nice week. Always good to see everyone. All right, so we have those trees like back in there. So the waterway will kind of like meander about like right through there. I got a little blotchy right there for some, I think there's a little bit of a stamp pad felt right there, and it kind of dragged up there, but don't worry about that because we're going to be stamping the seaside cove right across there anyway, so it's not really going to matter. It looks like we're going to have to do a little bit of masking in here, though. All right. Now you can have this as like a super calm, you know, completely flat body of water in here. Okay. If we did something like that, I would probably put little rocks in here or something like that, so it looks like it's underneath the water. But I'm going to do the seaside cove that has these little textures in here, like ripples coming across in here. I was going to stamp this whole thing just like right across here, but I just remembered I like this little shoreline right here that kind of wraps around like that. So what we'll do is we'll stamp this right here a little bit over here this way like this, okay? So the masking that we'll have to do is just a little portion right here and a little bit on this rock right here, okay? And you see this hard line up top like that? What I'll do is I just won't ink up, or I'll wipe off this portion up here before I stamp this out, okay? Thanks so much, Patty. Yeah, I'll remember to do that. Just joking. I can't click thumbs up for my own videos. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's get my bearings here. Okay, so it's going to be like this. Get a little bit of that wipe off up top like this. Maybe I'll wipe off the whole top row like that, okay? I'm doing it pretty good. Kind of wipe it off really good like that. Because it's going to transition up there, and I guess I don't want any like straight hard line anyway. So this is what you do when you want things to kind of transition or dissipate off on the sides where you don't want harsh edges, you just kind of wipe it off, some of the ink off. Sometimes you take off a lot of it, sometimes you take off a little bit. And it'll just stamp out lighter, okay? All right, let's see. All right, I think we're ready to go. I need to clean off my stamps some point in time. I usually do it, I don't know, when I have like 20 stamps that I need to clean off, because like my Seaside Cove Large last time, it stamped out a little bit light, and it's because there's a little bit of a buildup of some dried ink on it, so it could have like different types of ink on there as well. Pigment ink and I don't know, it might have had some stays on there. I think this one's okay, but it might stamp out a touch light in value. We'll see how it goes. The Seaside Cove Small was one of the few kind of really elongated designs that I had for a while. So it's kind of strange stamping out. If I do them fairly close to one another, like I just stamped out the flower field. The flower field's roughly this same dimension right here. I kind of designed the width of it around the Seaside Cove so that people have Seaside Cove Small, you know, they'd have a block to use for their, an acrylic block to use for their flower field. If they're using that, a lot of people use, like a Misty or something like that, or a, Tim Holtz positioner. But on the acrylic block, you need a fairly large acrylic block for these ones. All right, so that's the Cove in there. So we're looking like this right now. All right. It kind of has the, the spirit of it, this scene, or this composition right here. Let's put in these trees like this. I could go with the same trees that I used before, like this right here. Maybe I should if I want to go for a little bit more of a closer representation of that the previous scene. Let me see, like this. Okay, let's go for this. Then I can get a little bit more of this sandy shoreline in here because it has this kind of space right there. All right, let's do it. Masking off some of this rock right here. And we'll go about like so. Right here. And this one's going up into this cabin right here. A little bit like that. And let's see. Let's do this over here. I like this. I like the way this kind of composition is looking in here. It's squeezing a lot of imagery into, a pretty small space. I'm using large images, but, we're not really using them in their entirety. We're using like smaller portions of it, so. I doing this, I don't think I probably don't use so many of the larger stamps, in a quarter-page card usually. I'll use smaller portions of things, certainly. And I do that all the time, but I don't know if I've done so many on one quarter page before. I might have, but yeah, I don't remember it. It's like all these stamps are like G size. images. All right, we have that, and then we have our rocky peaks. Boy, that using those pens, I don't know if you can tell, but those pens, it's like those trees are like super juicy with ink still. Those Marvy 1600 pens are just really, really juicy. So I need to be, maybe I'll heat set this. I was going to say I need to be careful about when I start applying tone around those, unless I'm doing it with like a colored pencil. But if I do it with dye-based inks, I really need to be really careful about that. Because, you know, those trees will really drag and smear. Okay, so these trees are green. This background mountain is going to be stamped in black. We're going to wipe off the bottom portion. Pretty good. Taking off a lot of the ink. And then about midway up, I'll remove a little bit less ink in here. And then up top, it'll be like the full version of black. So that when I stamp this out, it'll look darker. And it'll transition into a lighter impression. And that lighter impression will be going in back of those trees. So hopefully the tree, you know, the silhouette of them, the shape of them will show better against a lighter area of that mountain, okay? And I'm not masking because those trees are, you know, dark. So you don't really need to mask them off. All right, so you can see that where it's darker up top, but you still have the texture and characteristic of the mountain down below, but it's more in like a, I don't know, what do you think about it? It's like a 20% gray or something like that, but then the areas up top are more like 100% black. All right, so we have that, and then we have our, you know, main subject matter right here, which will be stamped in here, but I'm going to wait to stamp her until later, after I get all my coloring and everything added in there, because I don't want her to be smeared. You know, it's going to be a visual landing point for the viewer. Anytime you put like a person in the scene, so you don't want them like smeared. I don't care sometimes, you know, if there's a little bit of a smearing that happens within the forms up here. I just look at it as like partial blending of the tones and everything like that. It kind of merges things a little bit too. I mean, I want things to be crisp, but if they do kind of smear out a little bit, sometimes it unifies all the different imagery even better sometimes. And then where it gets a little bit muddled at times, that's when I just go back and I add in, you know, crisp little highlights or something like that with the pen, so that little bit of muddling, you know, it doesn't really hurt the image in the end results, okay? All right, let's see. Let's go ahead and heat set this a little bit, because those trees are just like super moist right now. Standard just heat gun. All right, I didn't dry everything. I still see a little bit of a puddling in my trees. I don't know if you can see it, where it's a little bit more glistening, like right up there. It's a little bit wet still, and there's a couple areas right down in here. But at least I've taken care of some of the worst areas. I don't like to keep the heat on here for too long. Sometimes I think it kind of like, these inks aren't like heat, you know, reactive or something like that. But sometimes I wonder if it just kind of dulls them out a little bit, you know, to some extent. Okay, let's add in some additional texturing in here. I'm adding it at the base of, you know, that far shoreline right up there, mid-shore. and then we'll add some of it right down here in the shoreline. Maybe it's not like a sandy beach type of thing, but more kind of rocky, you know, shoreline, which probably this type of area would be than, you know, like whatever, white sands or something like that. So that kind of anchors and unifies things a little bit more from a textural standpoint. On this right here, okay, the thing that's kind of been going through my head in the past couple minutes here is I'm wondering if, you know, there's like just small areas in here. I'm wondering if I should just color this one with colored pencils and like alcohol inks. I think I can do that because on something like this, I don't want to do that whole thing because I can get so much coverage with dye-based inks as a base layer and everything in here. But on this one right here, I think I can just do it. There's like these small little areas of space, and I think I can just, I think it would be fast to just do it with colored pencils and, you know, to kind of bump up the richness a little bit more with alcohol inks over the top of it or underneath the dyes. Let's give it a try here. All right, so here's a range of blue tones for my water. And let's go into, I need like a really light beige. Okay, here's one right here. I thought I didn't have one. This could be used for my sandy area. I think I want to warm that up a little bit though. Let's bring in a little bit of this. I'm just looking through my very old pack of Prismacolor pencils that I've had forever. And let's go into these tones for the trees in here. I have a little bit of that orangish tinge. I mean, you don't have to get it all with the pencils because we have our alcohol inks and we have our paint pens. You know, we can do a lot of additions with. Okay, so there's things like this. You can see the ranges of tones that we can work with. You can bring in highlights into your water with, you know, like a paint pen like that. So if you ever think about getting some paint pens, acrylic paint pens, there's a lot of different brands out there that I think are made by the same company because they all have the same cap, this little back end, and the tip is all the same, but they have different barrels. Some of them are opaque, and they just have different brand names on them, but they're really good in quality. Some of them not so much. Like the tips or the inks are a little bit, they're denser, so that if you don't use them for a while, they kind of clog on you, which of course we don't want. That's more with the 3mm pen. But these 0.7 millimeters, they really come in some fairly relatively inexpensive sets. And I've been using them kind of, I don't know, hassle-free. Hassle-free meaning, you know, they're not clogging on me. I think at this point in time for like several years, so they're pretty good stuff. And I say that because a lot of us have used gel pens before. And of course we know the quality of those early gel pens. It's like still a nightmare to a lot of people. It's like, you know, clogging or stuff didn't work like from the get-go. I don't know, did anyone have any of those gel pens like that? It's like, you know, you buy them like they were like purchased off the stand, you know what I mean, or off the rack, and they didn't work. Okay, I'm just going to go in and add kind of a really light tone in here and get things going. With colored pencils, they, on this semi-gloss paper, I can't add too much of a, like a buildup of layers, like, you know, true colored pencil artists do. Which I'm not, of course, you know. But I really like the combination of things like colored pencils and this type of semi-gloss cardstock, because you get the impression quality on kind of a smoother coated paper, for stamped impressions. But I like that this paper has enough texture to it that it accepts the applications of this type of media that requires a little bit of tooth to it, in order to adhere to it. Something I didn't used to do, but over the last, like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years, I've been using a lot of it. It was all about glossy cardstock to me for years and years and years. Just because of the amount of saturation that you can get and the surface retention of media. But glossy cardstock, the colored pencils don't work on it, like, hardly at all. If they do, you might be able to get a little bit of a coating if you have like a certain color that's soft enough, but most of the art, it didn't really work. Okay, so I don't know if you can tell, but certain areas on here have a little bit of this very pale kind of beige-ish look to it. It's just a little warmth, and I'm laying it over these different images in here, similar to how I would do a base coat with dye-based inks. So the concept is the same, okay? It's just you're using a different medium, but this kind of coating over a lot of different areas in here, even though you won't be able to see it in the end result, it's giving us kind of a base layer of the same uniform color that will give, usually it gives the whole a little bit of a stronger kind of continuity in terms of our color scheme. I just smeared that top of the tree up there with that green ink. Yeah, it's probably right there on my hand. All right, so I need to be careful about that up there. Luckily, it was like right at the top portion of that, so no big deal. Okay, let's do the same thing. Let's go in here with the blue and hit this. And you notice I'm not doing like everything. This whole area in here is going to be water, but I'm not coloring it in a universal blue. I don't know. Maybe with this one I can hit it. Because this is the lightest blue that I'm going to be working with. I think it's the lightest blue that I have. So this one's going to be getting a little bit more coverage, and as I work through the value range, I'll be using less and less of them as I get darker and darker. Love-hate relation with gel pens. That was the same thing with me. I liked the was it Pilot? I can't even remember the name of it now. Oh, no, the Uniball Signo ones. Those ones worked for me pretty much without hassle. But I think occasionally I had a little bit of clogging. I don't know, maybe a little bit of clogging with them. Okay, but the more recent gel pens, when I say recent, I'm probably talking about the last, like, I don't know, whatever, 12 years or something, maybe 15 even. The gel I found, I'm talking about in large sets. With a Signo one, I would get the white one typically, and maybe a couple other colors like the metallics. But the ink, the pigmenting there, or the gel, I guess, was a little bit more watery. And I found that I speculated they just thinned it out so that it wasn't quite as, it didn't have the impact when you're like coloring with them. The colors weren't quite as intense, but that was a trade-off for having these pens that didn't clog, because the gel wasn't as thick, and wouldn't dry out as fast. I was just assuming, because I tried some different ones and it was like, okay. And then over the course of like a couple years, it was like, okay, these still aren't clogging. And I speculated it's probably because they're just thinner. it was you know, just made with a thinner viscosity, which I thought was a good idea, you know, because we want to have, you know, things that work. All right, so that is the blue there, but see how I'm oscillating a little bit of light in here and retaining some light, getting a little bit darker underneath these waves. I don't want to add too much with this one, so I'm being a little bit conservative with it, because if I build up too much color in a certain area, I can't add in more of the darker tones for a darker shadow on the smooth paper. Okay, if you're working with a matte, that's one thing with the matte, you know, the matte will have a little bit more tooth to it and you can build up on there a little bit better. But this is, you know, this is again, it's a fairly smooth paper here. The glossy cardstock, I have tons of it. Yeah. Yeah, still, it's, when I do those glossy ones, it's like, you know, people feel that because those are the things that they usually print like postcards on. Those glossy cardstock ones look just like a postcard because that's the same cardstock that they use usually for postcards. You know, most postcards are like a glossy stock that's used. All right, so going in here with the darker tone, kind of developing my shadow areas a little bit more. You see this right here? What I do is I kind of, this little point right here, I just kind of extend that out that way. You know, because this landmass right here would go underneath the water too, so you're seeing a little bit of this shaded area in here. Like this, and see at the far edge, you kind of just darken in the base of it a little bit more. So things are starting to feel a little bit more anchored in here, just with the water. I don't know what you call it, the shading scheme, you know, as opposed to the light scheme. Here's this little part of this whatever outcropping of rocks right here, and I'm extending that out as well. Okay, so where you have these land masses, you kind of just extend that shadow out a little bit more. So right in here, that's where that ends, and you see how I kind of extend that out that way. This one right here, it's a little bit lighter like that, but you see how it gets a little bit darker right here, right around that. This looks really good right here. I need to add in that kind of little bit more of a warm aqua tone into here. Let me see, let me grab that. Oh, like this one right here, it's a little bit of a warmer blue, I think. Let's go ahead and do that right now. Let's see. Sometimes when you add a little bit of warmth, a warmer blue into your bodies of water, it looks a little bit more inviting because you have like a visual warmth to it, you know, and then, unless you're plunging into a like a really cold lake after like doing a sauna. Like where do they do that? They do that in not Norway. Well, they might do it there too, but yeah, I forget. Where are those? Where are like saunas really big? Then you see like people go and take like that nice icy kind of plunge afterwards, you know, into a cooler like lake afterwards. But anyways, yeah, this becomes a little bit more whatever, kinesthetically inviting or visually, you know, because we're thinking about, okay, that's a little bit more warm. Let's bring some of this too. Let's bring some of this up into this mountain ridge right here, this bluish tinge. I can hit it kind of in the shadow areas of those peaks like that to give a little bit of continuity up there between our body of water and that top side. Let's do it down here too on these rocks. I can just kind of hit it in the shadow areas. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to make blue rocks, but again, it's just some kind of light base layer coat on here to bring continuity between all these different areas in here. All right, got that. I don't even remember which blues I've used. I don't think I've used this one yet. A little bit more in the shadows like this. All right. Kind of the shadow areas in the underneath the waves like that. Okay. I don't feel I'm missing any of the dye bastings at this point in time with this one. I think it's pretty bright on there, and then I haven't even used the alcohol inks over it too. So I think we'll be able to get a really good kind of a brightness into the piece, and just keeping the. I'm totally like smearing this area up here. I keep hitting this area like this. I should be going like this over the top of that area. So needless to say, this area up in here is going to be in a nice, strong, kind of dark vignette. Remember what we do in scenic stamping. If we don't like anything, what do? First of all, we say, who cares? And then the second thing is the notion is we'll just cover it up later. All right, adding a little bit more value up into those peaks up there. Now, in this piece right down here, I don't know, it was a mix of a bunch of different tones. Let's get a little bit more of a... let's add a little... Yeah, let's go for a little bit of brown, maybe. And then we'll add some colors into there, giving it kind of a look of whatever, multicolored lichen-covered rocks. Or you can put green on them, like there's some moss growing, or whatever you want to do. And for a lot of people, when we're coloring and we're doing those multicolored things, it's like we don't really know sometimes, and it's the same thing with me. I don't know if I want to bring in a certain color into something. Like this green, I just said, these rocks can have a little bit of moss on them. So if I want to get the gist of it, I don't have to do like a full commitment with a really bright application of it. You can just kind of do a little bit of it here and there, and then take a look at it and see if you like it. And if you like it, then you can develop it more and go brighter if you want to. I'll bring some of this green colored pencil into the trees that are going to be more of a kind of yellow golden fall color. I need to do these ones like super bright red sometime. Okay, I've already forgotten the name of those types of pine trees. Someone looked it up, in a video, I don't know, months ago, and told me what type of trees they were. But they're those types of like, I don't know if you call it, they're like pine trees that they change colors in the fall. I don't know if they're losing their needles too or something like that. And let's bring a little bit of orange into these trees as well before we hit them with the yellow, I think. And that foliage, that ground foliage, in areas with those fall tones, often there's like a, that ground foliage changes colors too. So, all right, let's go in and bring in some additional tones. I'm going to be really conservative at first with this really pale. It's almost the same color as that right there, that colored pencil one. But see, I can just get kind of a little bit of a base layer going of it, and I can see if I like it, and also it's kind of coating all of these objects right here with a layer of alcohol ink. And when you build up your layers like that, you start to get a little bit of a saturated surface of media. And so that when I go into it with my brighter colors or darker colors of alcohol, they blend easier because the paper's not absorbing it as much. So we can kind of like blend them out a little bit more, as opposed to the paper kind of absorbing, catching that ink really fast. All right. There's a little bit of a yellow orange. It's pretty bright. Kind of scumbling it like this. Yeah, that's enough of that one. All right, this is going really bright right here, I think. I don't know if it's quite canary yellow, but now, if you ever decide, oh, yeah, I should have used more of that certain color of alcohol ink, even after you go through your whole process and you're coloring with, your acrylic paint pens and things like that, you can always go back and add more. You know what I mean? I mean, the colored pencils don't adhere to alcohol now at this point in time, but you can probably get a little bit of color in there if you wanted to. It's like, oh, I want this, brighter yellow of the colored pencil. You can kind of go over it a little bit. It's going to be resisting it a little bit just because you've sealed off the surface a little bit more, but you can get some in there. So it's not like anything that you're doing in here. It's not like a point of no return. So you can see things as kind of like a process, but it's also forgiving, and you can go in more of a cyclical range, you know what I mean? You can go back and add other things to it, to some extent later. Maybe not a full saturation of certain things, but, Let's see, Finland. I think it's Finland there. We have a bunch of Finns over here in our little community because there's this big tech company in the neighborhood, and it's I think it's based out of Finland. Yeah. A couple of my son's friends and classmates were, Finland. I remember asking one of the kids when they were pretty young, I said, so what do you want for Christmas? And he said a sauna. And that's before I knew, kind of the whatever. I don't know, what is it, the tradition of it, All right. Some brown here. Like that. See, I'm leaving this a little bit light like this because I like that little light and shade within this area like that. I don't even remember what colors those are at this point in time. There was so much layering that happened in there. Layering of, the different tones and media. All the places that do saunas and then go into the cold water. Yeah. Has anyone ever done that, I mean, the most I've done with that is, you go into it like a sauna that's at like a hotel or something like that, and then you jump into the pool after. And what is that supposed to do? But I find it kind of exhilarating. Oh, yeah. I used to do that when we'd go into these ski resorts. I don't ski. But we'd go to these resorts we'd typically, go to these areas and we'd do like summer fishing or something like that. But they don't. A lot of them had saunas, and it's because the skiers, like after going skiing, they like to, jump in a jacuzzi or a sauna, in the wintertime or something like that. So. All right. Let's see. I don't think I didn't use any blues in there yet, or did I? With the pens. Let's see if we can get a little bit more kind of vibrancy in there, I guess, maybe. This is a really, really pale blue again, so I'm starting off with a really pale version again. All right. And then maybe I'll work through like these tones, so it was like a really light version like that, and you just work a little bit darker as you go. Okay, so the darker you go, you just kind of go into your shadow, your darker areas first. And as you can see, I'm not like taking care to not, oh, I went into that, you know what I mean? You can just, the way I blend, I'm coming into these areas that are around it. And I'm not trying to color kind of within the lines, because if you kind of go out of them a little bit like this, I'm talking about with the lighter tones, not with the darker ones. See, coming in here, that blue is across in there, and it's just kind of creating a shadow, so you get these colors that are in here and in here. It just doesn't read as this color in there, but I think, for me, I think it gives the piece, again, a little bit more of that color continuity going. Okay. And then as you move up into these ones right here, this one's probably, it's a little bit darker, but it's also a little bit brighter of a tone, so you can kind of go into your shadow areas like this. Oh yeah, I can tell with that one. Hopefully you can tell kind of on your screens right here. See this area down here? I mean, it looks pretty good right now, but I can kind of add a little bit of a brighter tinge to it with this one right here. This is a pretty bright tone. So see, kind of our intensity range has increased, but we're just doing it in the shadow areas like that. So there is the retention of all kind of the, I don't know, whatever the variation happening to. I don't want everything bright, because if you have some areas that are a little bit duller, then you have more of an intensity range, okay? Contrast bathing or a Viking bath. That sounds pretty good. Bill, it's time for your Viking bath. It's 5:15 p.m. in San Diego. Yeah, had 3-hour nap after getting car towed away for, oh, yeah. Isn't it a pain having, I hate anything wrong with a car or like computers are such a hassle. Like the car things, I don't know, unless someone knows cars really well. Or, is a whiz on computers. There's a lot of things that's like, oh my God. Getting those repairs is just a hassle. And they're things that we use all the time. All right, so a little bit of a brighter yellow like this, okay. It seems like this rock now, everything else is kind of coming up in intensity. So my rocks down here are kind of lacking, right? They look anemic. So let's go back into them and bring a little bit of a more of a richness. And it doesn't have to be everywhere in them, but just especially in the shadows, I think. Yeah, but I can't. Yeah, larches. Thank you, Nancy. The larches. That's the one. The larches. That sounds like a bird to me, or something like that. Maybe that's why I can't. I just can't remember the name of that. Okay, so hitting some of this. Maybe that was the wrong color to use in there. That blue. I'll tell you what. I'll do this right here. I'll a little bit of a blue in the rocks like that in the shadows, but then we'll go over it if I can, well, all right, where's my, I've been using my, here we go. I have a couple black colored pencils. I'll hit this black colored pencil in there. Yeah, you don't really get like a color richness using black. But I might be able to kind of increase the value range within these rocks, so we'll have kind of a like a darker black like that. Let's transition it a little bit more to like this. And I don't know, I don't want to dull out some areas in here, but I'll come into underneath the lip of some of these waves in here and just increase the oh, something interesting is happening. I hit this with variations in these blue colored pencils right here. So do you see that right there? I went back in there thinking this black colored pencil is going to go over it and darken it, but I scraped off some of those layers of the colored pencil. So this black wax in here is harder than probably most of these blues in here. So the blues transferred onto there because they're softer. So the black actually took off. So let me just go back and reintroduce this kind of darker edge right here with the blue like that, okay? So sometimes I guess, yeah, you know, if you're going to build up on this type of paper right here, like a matte paper would have grabbed it a little bit more. But I don't know if on matte I'd be able to get this kind of degree of saturation in here. Maybe. Okay, let's see. Let's hit some of this brighter tones in a couple of these areas right in here. All right, like that. So it's kind of, it's bringing up this, whatever, visual volume up, I guess you can say. It doesn't have to match the background, but you need to bring it a little bit closer. Otherwise, there's certain areas that might look a little bit, like I said, anemic, you know, on the scenes. If you want continuity, you might be doing something to, you know, like a whole scene, there's a whole scene or something like that. You have everything kind of more muted, and then you have like a bright tree, you know, for emphasis or something like that. So you can do that. But if you want a little bit more continuity, then kind of bring everything at least, you know, into kind of a closer focus in terms of the intensity scale. Okay, that being said, adding a little bit of tone to my cabin right here. Maybe like so. Shadows around my rocks. If this is like a saltwater environment, like this is in whatever, BC where you are, Linda, or like the Pacific Northwest and whatever, Washington, you know, you can go digging around in here and get clams if you want to. All right. I don't know, I think we might be ready for our paint pens. Let's do this one right here. This is a 3mm. Yeah, remind me of those larches in every live stream, Nancy, where I use them. It's like if I start using, there's just some, just post larches, so I can refer to them as such. Okay, so I'm not looking to fill up these larches right here, okay? So I'm getting my bearings on kind of how light this paint looks over the top of this. So just kind of spreading around a little bit. I don't need to do too much on this one. Now this is a darker area, so this yellow is going to stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to be a little bit more, yeah, I don't know, methodical about my placement of it. In other words, observe, apply and observe a little bit more as you do it, okay? These ones right in here. I can apply quite a bit because it's a light area. I'll add some of this texturing down here along the shoreline, about like so. This location, by the way, is a B&B if you want to reserve. Wouldn't that be cool? All right, there we go, like that. It's kind of bringing it to life a little bit with that texturing in there. Let's do like this color too. It's kind of a little bit of a duller green, but it's a light green like that. Yeah, the colored pencils worked better than I thought they would, Linda. But also just kind of go over them a little bit with, your alcohol inks or something like that. A couple different alcohol inks, and I think it'll kind of bring it around. I might be getting a little bit more of a kind of a brighter tone this one than this one right here. Of course, on this one I've used like a lot of white pigment ink over the top of it. So I did this one first. I would probably make this one a little, I can add it now too. I think maybe I'll go back and I'll add a little bit of brighter tints in this. See, this one I was being a little bit more conservative with my blue application, but now like I had to practice on this one. So on this one right here, I got like more gutsy. So when I'm telling you all this stuff about, kind of you apply things a little bit, whatever, slower, methodically and stuff like that, with certain types of processes, that's what I do myself. So you can see the difference between this one right here. I was kind of, like I said, I was being a little bit more conservative on that one. So on this second one here, using the colored, I don't use colored pencils a lot, so, or I haven't in the past, so, so you're getting these kind of instruction. I mean, it's not like colored pencil instruction. I'm just mentioning how I do it. I'm kind of pretty careful about, kind of stating that because I don't want people to think I'm any kind of like, not even an authority, but someone that knows how to, how to use colored pencils. I don't want that to, anything that people are thinking. That's why I mentioned earlier, anyone that does colored pencils that are, you know what I mean? I didn't even know what the difference is between a lot of the different brands of colored pencils until I pulled out my like 30-year-old pack of them, like a couple years ago. All right, so I forgot about this foreground tree deciduous or whatever, tree in colors. So this is one where the branches got just stamped in all black. So I'm going back over them and I'm getting a pretty good amount of coverage here with the 3mm pen. If all you have is the 0.7, you can do that as well. It's just going to, be a few more, whatever, taps, applications like this. But okay, so speaking of that with the colored pencils though, so that's just my process. If I haven't done, certain things, or if I haven't done them for a while, or figured out a kind of a methodology for me, I apply things kind of in lighter shades and I just kind of bring it up into focus a little bit more. So that's why I kind of work through ranges like this. So it's like, with the alcohol pens, I start light and I just go darker. And as, things develop or I get more comfortable with it, I just, I might apply things faster, at that point in time. All right, so these trees in here, these darker trees in the background, a lot of the ink it was so moist and juicy, it really kind of spread out in there. I like to have a little bit more of a variation. So because I didn't get it inherently in those impressions, it was kind of there, but then it dried. It was just like way too juicy. I'm going to try to get some variation using these paint pens like this into them, okay? And this one's really, really transparent here, this dark green. Okay, so this one's like the opposite. I mentioned going from light to dark, but on paint pens I often go from darker tones to lighter ones on dark objects, okay? So let's do that. I'm adding in some texturing using this pen right here, but then I'll go into it using the pen that I used in the yellow areas, okay? Okay, Nancy, you did it in Iceland. You went into jacuzzi, and then you love the blue look. Can jump afterwards was really cool. I was going to ask you, yeah, did you just... everyone else was doing it, so you did it, or you seen it, and then you wanted to do that, so it's like, okay, when I go there, I'm going to do that. Hello, Caroline. We're talking about jumping into, going in from, like a jacuzzi, sauna, and doing the, that polar bear plunge. No clams in my part of the country. Uh-oh. Oh, the ocean is too far away. When you get out there and visit then. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of this texturing up here in these trees. Okay. Like that. I don't like the look of that, but I'm going to mellow it out a little bit with some colored pencils, I think. These trees up here were just like a solid green up there. I mean, that looks okay, as long as you have this other texturing going on in there, but I want something a little bit more, whatever, varied in those trees up there, okay? All right, let me try this one right here. This is kind of like a neon yellow. I think I've used it before. I think it was like too watery or something. Let's give it a try here. I'm applying it up here in wet paint, okay? Well, let's see what this looks like. In the larches, it looks okay. I think it's going to dry and be practically invisible, though. So it kind of shows up right now, those highlights like that, but I have a feeling it's going to dry a lot more transparent and darker, so. I don't know, it looks really good when it's wet, though, like that. It's really kind of sparkly, bright in those colors. Let's see. It's another one of those things, so we were talking about gel pens clogging. These paint pens, I find the colors to be really good, but sometimes I wish they were a little bit more intense and opaque. But if the price for being that way is, shorter lifespan and potentially clogging, I'll take the watery one or whatever it is right now. It's not like, what I mean? They're good. I mean, they're not watery, but I'm just saying they're watery-er. This other brand one time came out, I thought, oh my gosh. So you apply it, and it pretty much retained really close to that level of intensity and value in terms of light and bright through the drying time, but then I didn't use them for a couple months. It was like, oh my god, there was this crusty film over it. Not the 7mm, 0.7mm, but the the thicker 3mm ones with the felt tip, though. But I thought, oh my gosh, I really loved working with them, but Maybe, if you ever got those, or a brand like that, you got to do a little bit of scribbling with any of the pens that you've already kind of started working with. And just to keep that paint flowing periodically, so, every few days, maybe doing a little scribble. That's what they said you used to have to do with technical pens way back in the day. I use a lot of technical pens to work on my drawings. And if you don't work with them for a little while, sometimes they can get the ink can get dried in the nib. So they were said you should do like a line with them periodically. And maybe that's the same case with some of these the thicker 3mm paint pens. But they're really fantastic to work with though, because I really like the ability of adding in lighter textures over the top of darker shades in the background, which for so many years I wasn't really able to do with dye-based inks. Dye-based inks, if you add a light blue over the top of a dark blue, it's not going to look like light blue or anything. Same thing with alcohol inks, alcohol markers, dye-based pens, etc. So this is like one of those opportunities to add like shimmer and texture into a scene. Yeah, Linda, I really like this composition. So it's like I wanted to do one like much smaller and more kind of accessible, and maybe kind of using the paint, the colored pencils too, and the alcohol inks to come up with a nice, bright version of it. I thought would be good. All right, so let's see here. Let's go with that paint up there is like really, really wet, that green. I need to be careful about that when I come into it with the pigment ink now. Okay, avoid those trees. I'm making just a mental note here. White pigment ink. All right. There are freshwater clams. Yeah, there's this lake near me called Lake Hodges. And it's a man-made lake. And it's full of clams, like some shorelines. The water comes in and it recedes like all the time. I mean, we're talking about like several feet. I don't know about every year, but every other year it seems like. So there's whole shorelines that are just all clamshells. All right, so I just added in a bunch of this white pigment ink over the top of that mountain. I want to do it at the base of the mountain, but I'm kind of scared here with all that green, like bright green, wet paint in there. Okay. Let's add a little bit of lighting coming through these trees right here. Okay. So this is a very light, kind of a dry application of this white pigment ink. Okay, I'm not hitting it with a blob of paint. It's really dry on here. Here. So here's a piece of my suede paper. So see this right here? Tapping it down, not tapping it hard either, but that's, the amount of it. So you do like a couple taps and you barely see it at all. Okay, that's what you want on this. And that's where you'll have a lot of control over it. All right, let's add some of this on the shoreline right in here as well, I think. See, this is where I left it a little bit light, so this is where light meets darker. And that's a good place to, good opportunity to do it. I like doing it in the wave area, like right around in here, where the crashing waves are. Like that just kind of creates like a mist or something like that. Let's do it right up here. Everything is like really crisp right here, which I like. But I like to make it, sometimes you put a little bit of a soft kind of lighting or fog. So you're sacrificing some of the crispness of some of the imagery, but you're making it kind of soft. You're bringing in a softer light like this. So sometimes that can look brighter and crisper by having something soft and lighter right next to it. Okay, you're just kind of playing contrast against one another a little bit. But it's just really fun to add this in there. I love the look of it. That changes, as you add it in there. I'm going to have to add some of this in these trees later, but I think those trees will really look good be knocked down a little bit. Okay, I mentioned I was probably going to use some colored pencils in here. Let's see if I can. Okay, I'm just going in here and like totally smearing out some of that wet green in there. Let's say I need to go with a darker green in here. Just for a little bit more texture. This green, I can feel it. This green right here is a harder wax than my other colors, so it's not really applying. I'm getting a little hint of it though. Okay, it looks like if I stay in one area, it kind of builds up a little bit more. I think that looks pretty good, like that. All right, one thing I forgot to do, or I don't know, just haven't gotten around to it yet. Let's bring in a little bit of a shimmer into these, into this water area. After all, water would be the thing that's kind of like reflecting light, kind of the strongest, probably. I don't know, like fall trees do too, though, don't they? All right, this is a light blue. That's applying really well. Okay, that's almost too dark. I need to go a little bit lighter. Let's go with this little bit of a tan color right here. It's real slippery in here because it's really smooth with all that alcohol, so this paint pen isn't getting very much traction. It's like it feels like I'm trying to apply this on glass, which can be good in some ways, but see that? Or I've just gone on tops of those ripples and just kind of redefine that right in there, like so. Yeah, let's try the white. These splashing kind of waves are splashing a little bit more. And this is called specular light. It's light that's brighter than white. Like if you're taking a photo of something and there's like light reflecting off something, that's not white, it's light reflecting. So they call it specular light. So if you add in those little touches like that, it kind of brings the piece to life, and it really looks a little bit more realistic that way. Having reflective things like this stamp pad right here, that's kind of specular light right on that little line right there. Okay, and that's specular light right here. It's reflecting light. This is white right here, but you can see that right there is lighter than it because it's like lighting, okay? So that's what this is kind of represent. This is white, of course, but that's what this little thing is kind of representing in here. Like that, because it's going to be the lightest thing in the piece. Okay, so we'll add that to our trees as well. So it's giving him that little bit of a stronger shimmer. Anyone watch that movie called Deliverance? Burt Reynolds and Ned Beatty and all that. So we have a hand now in the Halloween sets. So like this that you can have coming out of that water, like right there, like that end scene. All right, let's see here. We have that shimmer going in there. All right. I have our figure in here too. Let's see. I'm wondering if I should use the smaller version of this Lady Rider. But this one would be, you know what I mean? It would be using that same thing, going for that piece in there. I don't remember what ink that I used on this one though. Did I use the hybrid ink? I think I used the hybrid ink, but this one has so much more waxy colored pencil in there. I might have to go for the stays on ink. I don't know. That looks pretty good in there. I'm not sure if I'm going to stamp this figure just for the sake of it. Okay. Because I like what's going on in here. There's a lot of variation in tone in there. So we might be leaving this one out of there now that I think about it. Unless I do the smaller one. The smaller one's like, man, that smaller one's going to be out of scale though with that. So yeah, but that would look pretty good in there. This rider right here. All right, so this scene right here, this is like, this scene right here is like 5 hours earlier than this. Okay, when the mist and everything's kind of rolling in, or this is like earlier in the morning. All right. So like I always say, artistic license, we change our minds, with what we're going to do. But okay, here's the thing though. I did want to bring in one of the things I didn't do on this one during the live stream. Did I do it I don't know if I recorded it later, but do you see these little leaves down in here? Those are those little miniature, like modeler's leaves. And you almost can't even tell when you look at this like that. But if you look closely, we have these kind of three-dimensional little leaves in here. And I think that would look good in here, potentially. So I happen to have some that I just poured out on my table right here. I'm just leaving them right here because, they're pretty fun to use. And I think I have some green ones as well. I went a little bit more green down here, so I think these green ones will merge visually with these ones, this color down here. So let's bring out some of these ones as well now. I don't have a lot of space in here, obviously, so I won't be using too many of these, but I've tried them up in trees before, and I've placed some up there. I don't know, there might be a place for that, but I tend to, I don't think I liked it too much. I think I had some like in the trees, but then I had some on the ground, and I thought, I think they look better like fallen leaves. I think they looked, I don't know, just better that way. A bunch of friends from the base went, so I joined them. Yeah, when in Rome. Did you do it like after you did it that first time? Did you do it like a bunch of times or something like that? Oh, you were with the Air Force. Have I talked to you before, Nancy? I grew up next to, at the time it was Vandenberg Air Force Base, but now they call it Vandenberg Space Force Base. I didn't know. I thought that was just a nickname, but I guess they officially changed it. But my dad, worked out on the base. He wasn't we weren't military, but he worked for a contractor out there at Vandenberg. So that's where I spent all my childhood, and out on the base. There's a lot of coastline out there. And that's where I spent a lot of time at the beaches, and they were always empty because you had to have base access to get on those. I don't know how many miles of coastline it is. Is it 40 miles of like pristine coastline practically? And in the 70s and 80s and even the 90s, after 9/11, there was much more kind of restricted access, but we used to go out on the beaches there all the time. It was like having all of that to ourselves practically whenever we were out there, fishing, clamming. My dad got abalone, which probably aren't out there anymore now, with the price of abalone and, people knowing that, and going out there probably. But we used to get clams and everything. I've never eaten freshwater clams that we got, though. I don't know. It always, like, It seems a little sketchy, you know. I'd be a little bit worried about eating the freshwater clams at lakes around here, or in California in general. I don't know. Do clams get giardia? All right, so applying, you can see I'm just using my little scratchboard knife, the one that's like really like pointed like this, like an arrow. I just kind of use this to like spear one of my leaves, and I'm looking for like nice and flat ones. And I'm thinking about the colors too a little bit. I just apply it like so, but this little scratch knife blade works really great for these leaves here. I'm finding. Yeah, well, let's see. I'm gonna add a. I didn't put any red leaves up here. Let's just have like a couple. And kind of that red kind of blends in a little bit with the background color tones. Plus, who's to say there isn't kind of a reddish, you know, fall tree like right back in here, you know, dropping that. All right, let's see. So I went yellow, yellow, green, red, yellow, and we'll go, why don't we go green right here? See, some of these are different colors too. There's like lighter green, darker green in this like multi-colored pack that I got here. You guys can't see that at all. See those right down in there. So make sure that you stay with this same color combination and sequence, okay, that we're developing here for it to look good. I'm joking, folks. All right. So see, like that? I don't know if anyone, you know, at first glance, I don't know if they're going to be saying, oh, here are these little, like, three-dimensional little objects right down here, but I think they look pretty good in there. Let's see. I'm trying to think if I want. I'm going to put a little speck down, like right in here. No, okay, I'm not going to do it. That's too far away. But right over in. There's a couple little areas on that like sand down there. And then in these packs of leaves like that, there's like whole ones, but then there's a bunch of crumbs, okay? So I'm going to grab a couple of these little crumb bits and put them like what down here. It's probably this is supposed to be like a ledge, and we're looking down, you know, off of it, and this is the lower portion. But I want to just to get a little bit of that texture down there. I'm grabbing a couple of these little crumbs that, you know, poured out when I grabbed some of these. So you can use your leaf crumbs for kind of more distant leaf textures like that. Okay. So that's my version of a, you know, diorama. Those are my three-dimensional aspects of it. That's the extent of my three-dimensional work in my pieces, as far as a technique goes. But it's a nice and easy one. So, okay, I still really want to add in some of that white pigment ink right back in here to kind of push those trees back a little bit, or maybe this one from this one. But it still has that glistening, wet paint right up there. So that green, like I said, I need to remember that green. I should even just take this green out of there. I'll bury it like on the bottom of the pile or something like that. But all right, so I don't know. These brighter tones, I might have to jack this one up a little bit more here on the you know, the original one. Some of these brighter blues in here I really like, and yeah, I guess I went orangish tinges in here, and these ones I went more greenish yellow. But I don't know. I like some of those brighter tones in there. Let me do something right here. I don't know if you noticed right in here. I mean, it probably happened slowly, subtly, but when you add in these lighter tones over these darker colors right in here in the background, it soaks in or something. So you might have to go back in and reintroduce and kind of build up more of this paint to where you're getting kind of a resulting final look. In this case of these brighter two, I'm going to add some of this down here too on these rocks. All right, so see this one, you can't even see that yellow on there at all anymore. And the yellow was on there as kind of like the first color that I used. So let's just go in there like that. So I don't know, 2 layers will, I don't know, maybe you might do it. You might need a third, I'm not sure. This is that little bit more of a brighter canary one. We'll hit that in there too. So I don't know, what is that, like 3 or 4 layers probably. Eventually you build up enough. Yeah, for me, I'd want it to just be opaque enough to where it's like, what you see is what you get sometime. But it's not bad sometimes for it to kind of fade out a little bit, because then you have a little bit of a chance to develop things, and sometimes things look a little bit more rich and layered with those additional, tones on there. Like that one, I don't know, it looks a little bit more textural and toned in. Maybe it's a little bit more three-dimensional. Oops. Sorry about that. Let me see if I can get that. Or did it focus? No. All right, folks, let me see here, right here. I mentioned before, I think it's the software on this. It won't allow me to go in real close often times. Yeah, it's hunting here. Let me see something like this. Let me see. Yeah, that sounds familiar, Nancy, after you mentioned that. That's pretty cool. I haven't talked to too many people, and a lot of my friends were Air Force, They call themselves Air Force brats or whatever, that traveled around everywhere. But I don't know too many that were in Europe. I'm sure there were, but a lot of it was domestic moves and like somewhere in the Pacific. Liquid glue does not always play well. Either it runs or it gets clogged for. The glue that I was using before, I didn't have a good experience with that. But I don't know. I was using I hadn't been using glue for years, so it was like a really old bottle of this clear one. But then when I asked around, it was like, okay, the Barely Art, or there was this other brand too, but someone said it's the same thing. But 2 glues always came up. I don't know. What's everyone's favorite glue here? I got when I asked this before on those live streams or on Stamp Junkies on Facebook. I don't know, maybe in the Stampscapes group too, but that Stamp Junkies has 20,000 people that are on there. I seem to recall everyone was saying 1 of 2 glues, and so I tried it. Yeah, but Barely Art. Yeah, Halama, there you go. That's where I used to go surfing there. The people that were, and if you had base access, if you're in Air Force too, you can go on all over the base out there and surf anywhere out there. The boathouse, which is this lighthouse out there, and what was it? Point Sal. They call it South V for South Vandenberg. Yeah. Aren't those little leaves fun, Christine? I mean, to float on top. Yeah. Especially for those reflection cards, those leaves really come in handy. I love that you're using those, because I think it really adds a lot to those reflection cards. Let me see if I have one handy. Okay, so when we start talking about certain things, I like to show people, so that, they're not left out. But here's like one of those first reflection cards. So this is all green tones up here, but see, these are the green little leaves that I've just added in. I didn't add any of the yellow and red. But see, there's all these little green leaves right in here. And then you kind of cluster it around certain objects a lot of times like that. I think I had them kind of randomly applied before, but I thought it looked better in the cluster. So, people like this. It looks real kind of like a little mini diorama or something like that. But those little elements like that. The leaves are flat enough too where you can mail this off like that. They're not like curled. Some of them are a little bit more curled up like a bowl, just with the way they dried. But these are flat enough where you can send them out like that. But really effective in the reflection cards like that. We need to do a reflection card where it's like all like aspens or something like that. Now these aren't aspen leaves. Aspen leaves would be round, but we'll do like this whole deciduous thing in like golden leaves or something like that, reflected in a gold cardstock down below with golden leaves on the top. Wouldn't that be cool? So maybe we'll have to do that one coming up here while it's still the fall. I love this time of year, by the way. Fall is my favorite time. Out hiking and things like that with the no crowds. The summer rush is gone, from certain areas. It's easy to get rooms in areas. I haven't done this for years, but like I used to go to Eastern Sierras and, the town was practically empty because it's before the ski season, way after summer vacations. So, and then the weather's perfect and you have just no crowds at all the different locations. So, really awesome. Let's see. Did anyone mention? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I haven't had any problem with this. Some people were saying that this thing clogged too, but I don't know. I haven't had any problem with the Barely Art, precision, whatever glue thing. I was surprised though, a little bit, when I started looking around the glues, I thought, oh, they cost that much now? But this one's like a 2 ounce. And for my use, I don't really use it very much. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like, this is like 2 years of it. I would be surprised if I even got down below the cap right here at this point in time. But I don't know. So far, so good. Knock on wood with that glue. So next round of stamps and waterfalls would be awesome. You have the waterfalls though, right? Already, Christine, the ones that exist? And then there's the waterfall set, but you want more, huh? Do you want like taller ones or something like that? Like more distant ones? We have, let me see, there's Gushing Falls, Cascading Falls, Babbling Brook, Tall Falls, is that what it's called? Tall Falls? Gushing Falls Small is still out there. I think there's 5 waterfalls that we have. And then what I was doing with the mystic imagery is between the 2 mystic mountains, you can do these like, that whole Asian-y looking Chinese ink painting style of waterfalls by putting in 2 mountains close together, and then you create that fall in between them. I need to close my blinds here. Everyone can see in. I'm thinking, what the heck is going on in this room here? Barely Art. Okay, so Nancy used the Barely Art there. Yeah. Fall makes me sad. Days get shorter and colder. Oh. That's sad there, Bill. Come out to California. I don't know. Don't go out to California. Go to Maine. That color out there. I got to get out to Maine one of these days again. Like around, I think it was more September though. In that Acadia. God, that was so spectacular out there. Go during a weekday and no one's out there. No locals go to like Acadia. Like they don't need to go to the state, the national park out there because they're surrounded by, their backyard looks like that. So, yeah. And I don't know, all parks, national parks are a lot more crowded these days, but oh my God, that whole area left an impact, you know. And I've been out in like Colorado too with the aspens out there and all those brightly colored yellow leaves, and a little bit in eastern Sierras, California, but you know, we don't have like that big fall display except around some of the lakes out there. But I don't know. If anyone goes to like Maine, stuff like that, you know, I think I came back thinking about fall differently after that. Yeah, in California, Southern California, you know, we don't see the change of the seasons or something like that. But those that I don't know. I would imagine it's all in that whole area, but I just happened to be in Maine a couple different times. But one of the times was in that all that you know spectacular full color up there. So yeah, it was amazing. Something with more distance. Oh, okay. Huh. I wonder what. Yeah. I think I was drawing one for that Mystic series one time. I didn't release it, but it was a real kind of distant. I don't know. It would probably be like a 300-foot waterfall or something like that. It was real narrow, but I just didn't do it with that. So I just kind of I found out that you can just kind of create it out of the Mystic Mountains or something like that. But I'll try that sometime. Yeah, that you know what we should do is we should try it sometime. Oh yeah, and there's Tall Warwick Falls too, which is supposed to look something like Yosemite Falls. Um, but we should just try making that. I should just try it with a couple boulders or something like that. You put two boulders together like this, and you leave a space in between, and that becomes the fall. And then you can just hit it with some colored pencils or something like that, and that creates that you know that gap in between, and it becomes it's a little bit better if you're doing that kind of whole misty kind of valley type of thing where it's falling into mist, because then you don't have to address the bottom and it looks like it naturally goes into something. But yeah, waterfalls are spectacular. Do what is that thing called? Oh, what was that? It's that thing that they do that they used to do in Yosemite, where some guy was at up at top, dumping off those ashes, um, or those embers, and then kind of making that fall at night. Now that if you look at a certain fall in Yosemite from a certain angle during sunset, it looks like this golden kind of mist and you know falls coming down or something like that. But we need to do something like that with the imagery at some point in time too. I don't think I've ever done that before. Boy, it'd be really spectacular if we can do it with some sort of lighting in there too. Oh yeah. So on this one too, I don't know if I find maybe I'll do this in a secondary, like a follow-up video for this one right here. But I want to add in some additional like glitter into these trees. I was looking at a video that I did before with the golden glitter on some of these trees in here, and I thought, oh yeah, that looked really good. So maybe we can do some of that too. Maybe even intersperse some of the little bits of that gold, yellowish gold glitter into these leaves and fallen leaves in here. Because I need to start playing around with some of that stuff. You know, we're talking about specular light. I like light flashing out from my cards back at whatever the recipient or the viewer of the scenes are. And that's where, you know, those reflection cards come in and stuff like that too. But I like putting it back into the leaves. We're doing so many different techniques right here. I tend to forget about it sometime. And, you know, sometimes unless, I don't know, someone makes a comment on one of those videos and it's like, oh yeah, the glitter or something like that. Or, oh yeah, the glow in the dark, whatever, embossing powder or something like that. I tend to forget about these things sometimes. There's so many different things to kind of play around with. It came in a set of clear poly stamps from Hero Arts. Ah, got it. Oh, very tiny. Yeah. All right, folks. So there's your smaller version of it right there. Of I think I called it. I don't know. I don't know. Autumn colors or something like that. But there's our smaller version of it. A little bit more of an intimate. Again, version of something. I don't know if this one's like grand or something like that. You know, maybe if I did that like on a 11 by 17 or something like that, it looks like, you know, bigger. But there's certainly more spaces in here, you know, where you can go in and see and enjoy, like, you know what I mean? Certain areas of it, where on this one you tend to look at it as more of like a whole, like a one shot, you know, viewing of something like that. But I don't know, just an example of taking like a small, you know, a larger piece like this and getting that same sort of spirit in a smaller application. I need to come in here with some additional white pigment ink in here, and maybe I'll come into this one, you know, some of that glitter or something like that, and I think that would be really fun. But you can condense larger versions of scenes into smaller ones, but then you can also expand on small ones and just kind of build these ones out as far as you want it to go. And oftentimes it's just kind of repeating your imagery more times. It's not like you don't have to use a ton more stamps to create larger versions of something. Okay, so like these rocks down here are just repeated like 4 times for this entire foreground area, and it would be using the same, you know, trees in the foreground like this. I just stamped them out 3 times right here, but on here I just stamped out like a smaller portion of them. All right. So anyways, yeah, and it's a lot more coloring and everything like that. But again, you know, sometimes it's fun to kind of break out and to do those larger versions of pieces, right, Linda? Linda, it gets bigger and bigger. I was joking with her. She's gonna do like this whole kind of mural on our wall or something like that with really large scenes. Or if we can have something like a roll paper, rolled cardstock or something like that, then you can do like a, I don't know, like a 5-foot one. I knew someone that did a 5-foot scene. It was one of the owners of this store in Lake Elsinore, California. It was called a Little Bazaar. Okay, I can't think of his name right off the bat, but he did like the scene that was like 5 feet long, wide. I think he had it framed on his wall in the store too, or something like that. It was really cool. Anyway, oh, the larger one. You can watch that. I did a real quick version of this scene right here. It's like 3 minutes long too, Nancy, if you want to see that one. Just, you know, the gist of it being kind of constructed from start to finish right here. The interesting thing for me, though, was on this one, just going on with the colored pencils and the alcohol inks on there. I don't know. I can't even tell, to tell you the truth, that no dye-based inks were used on this one. So I know I think need to think about that more as a potential kind of just process. I don't know. Sometimes it's a little more accessible to people too because they've used you know, they haven't like toned in a whole area with all this dye-based ink as a base layer color everywhere. You know, sometimes like a 2-step kind of layering process might seem, you know, I don't know, whatever, easier to kind of comprehend the concept of. I just used dye-based inks on this one, you know, like there, to get a good base layer and it just to make it faster on these larger pieces. But I don't know. I have to practice a little bit more with the colored pencils and see what we can do in terms of getting everything, maybe with less too, or just I don't know, whatever the alcohol markers. All right, blabbing on here. I'm looking at these pieces and kind of thinking about it here. So anyway, this one might be good too. I'm thinking of this one now. Every time I start blabbing on, I'm thinking about these other things. I think a little, like one of those kayakers in here or something like that would be good. Or the paddle boarders right in here. I might add a couple things to this one in a future vid. I'll take a look at it in the next, I don't know, few hours. And I think I'm going to go for the glitter on it, though, for sure. But I don't know, that little paddle border in here would be cool, too. See, after doing those like monster scenes where they're just packed full of all kinds of stuff, I don't know. I'm thinking about adding more into these ones now. Kind of I'm in that mindset of a, you know, whatever, condensed imagery. All right. great to see everyone. For anyone that's kind of watching in the background, thanks to all of you for checking out the video or watching it on replay. Always have fun with it. All right, good night, everyone.